Who's your number one quarterback?
It's Cam Ward. I thought about. I genuinely think that it's closer than most people do. Like, this is the chalkiest quarterback ranking season I can remember. Pretty much everybody seems to have exactly the same order. The debate is like where the gaps are, like how big the gap is between 1 and 2, between 2 and 3. I genuinely think it's closer between Cam Ward and Shedeur than most people do. And I thought about briefly sticking with my kind of initial instinct and saying, maybe let's keep Shedeur number one. But no, I think Cam Ward is that guy. I think there's obviously the physical tools are better, right? He's got a better arm. He's more mobile, athletic, however you want to term that. Just easy velocity, like all those kind of traits are there. And he does make special throws. He doesn't have as much of the thing that Shedeur is really bad at. Ward is not as bad at. And it's just like, how concerned are you at the what the hell plays that he has?
Yeah, Cam Ward's my number one as well, by the way. So let's dig into what's actually happening with Cam Ward. We saw he came through Incarnate Word, then Washington State, and then to Miami. And look, last year was by far his best season. Coming into the year, when you watched him at Washington State, you saw, I'll talk about his turnover-worthy play rate in a minute. It's incredibly consistent in the threes. And it's a high number for college, right? It's a 3.5, 3.7, 3.4. And those types of numbers at the NFL level for turnover-worthy plays, you're like middle of the pack at the NFL level. And so that's probably potentially worse, when you project Cam Ward at the next level. So I think it's interesting, by the way, that the Titans are probably going to draft him. And we made a big deal of the Will Levis, what you call the meme plays. Cam Ward has some bad plays. There's going to be a little PTSD in the building when they watch a couple of these Cam Ward plays. The difference will be, can he offset them with some of the great plays that he's able to pull out?
I think there's a fine line in that whole world, right? Like, there's a fine line between genius and idiocy when it comes to decision making at the quarterback position. And like I tweeted out one of them, but Cam Ward treads a very fine line between like those magic improv plays that, great quarterbacks can do and the what the fuck meme plays that Will Levis has, right? Like, there's one play in particular, he was wrapped up, he's in trouble, and he like just about frees his arms and then pitches the ball out to a tight end who then rumbles like 20, 30 yards and makes a big play. But like, that's not a million, like that's a fraction away, or the arm from the pass rusher getting in at the wrong time. Like, that's a hair's breadth away from a Will Levis meme play where you're like, what are you doing? You can't do that, right? And that, so yeah, the question is like, is he going to be consistently on the right side of that line, or does he do enough? Like, the other thing is, even if you're not, do you just make enough positive plays that you offset the terrible plays? And that was really like the meme plays for Levis they're what took him down effectively. But honestly, the worst part was that he didn't offset them with enough big plays. Like, if he only had like one of those a week, right? But if you had a bunch of big plays on the other side of the ledger, the way Josh Allen did earlier in his career, you'd have a lot more people saying, let's stick with him. He can get by those. He's making big plays. The problem is he didn't have the positive. And it was just like every week there's one joke play to be like, come on, this guy can't start.
Here's what I feel is different with Cam Ward versus, say, Will Levis. I think there's a part of Levis's game where that's like how he's wired, right? He gets into the game. If it's a first read, second read, he's okay. Once things go a little haywire within a play, maybe he short circuits a little bit. I think Cam, it's more of the hero ball discussion, right? He's trying to do too much. And if you just take his plays in isolation, put him next to some bad Levis plays, you'll say, okay, these are similar. Every time Cam Ward made these plays, though, cross-body interception against Florida in week 1, cross-body horrible pick 6 against Cal in the biggest game of the year to that point. Miami still undefeated. Every time he made one of those plays, he bounced back from that. And so I always use the phrase amnesia. I stole that from a pitching coach that I had. He said every pitcher needs to have, a few things, and one of them's amnesia, right? The ability to forget what happened, forget your bad pitches, forget your bad plays if you're a quarterback. I think Cam has that. And you said, hey, this only happens once a week. Virginia Tech, maybe it happened 3 times, but there was at least one in a lot of the big games for Cam Ward. And almost every single time he was able to bounce back. and offset that with the arm talent that he has. We're seeing him throw the ball 60 yards and hit areas of the field that just shouldn't be touched, right? Where defenders don't even expect to be defending. I think when you watch all of these quarterbacks in succession, and I actually watched, I made it a point to not watch Cam Ward first, because I think a lot of times in our brain, you kind of like watch players in the perceived order, and then your brain almost like works in that same order. So I tried to watch Cam Ward after I watched everyone else. There's so many QBs in this class who don't have great arms. And when you watch Cam Ward after those guys, you're like, okay, that ball comes out different. That ball flies out of his hand, both down the field and, he was just ripping seam routes left and right. So look, I think he is a boomer bust type of prospect. And as I preface this entire show with every quarterback's boomer bust, but I think he has the ability to create special plays inside the pocket, outside the pocket, certainly has the ability to make those hero ball plays that you just want to eliminate from his game. But you mentioned, how much do you do that, right? How much do you try to rein him in? He's one of those guys you say, how much do I try to rein him in? Will I lose some of the natural playmaking, or do I just have to deal with that? But I don't worry about how he's mentally wired, maybe like from what we've seen with Will Levis. I think Cam Ward has elevated each of the programs he's been at. He elevated Miami, made them a playoff contender, even though they lost down the stretch. And I think that means something as well.
Yeah, and I do. So because so much of his kind of scouting report, if you like, is going to be focused on, the arm, the physical tools, all those kinds of things, which are good. Like, I think those are definitely worth bringing up. The arm is different to a lot of these other guys, like just easy velocity. He's able to fire the ball and absolutely rip, frozen ropes on various targets. I think his athleticism is really good, but he's not in the Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels stratosphere. He's in, like, to me, his athleticism worked more in the kind of prime Russell Wilson era, right? A stockier guy who's fast, but probably not going to be like a huge part of your team's sort of design run game, but is really good at extending plays. Like, he's fast enough to get away from guys. He's strong enough to fend them off as well. Like, there are plays where he stiff arms a pass rusher, buys himself another couple of seconds. Like, he's really good at that kind of stuff. But because so much of the focus is on that, I don't think he gets enough credit actually for the more cerebral quarterbacking parts of it. And because maybe one of his biggest negatives is the meme play, tightrope that he's walking sometimes. But I actually think, like, he makes quick decisions. There's very little lag time between him seeing it, letting the ball fly, or taking off. Once he decides something, there's zero hesitation there. He's just, I'm gone. He, most of the time, when he sort of takes off moving, and when he starts to lean on his athleticism, he's doing so to find a pass, as opposed to, as soon as there are quarterbacks where as soon as they have to start moving, they're looking to run. Like, they're taking off and they're getting 3 yards if 3 yards is what's available. He's looking to buy time most of the time. And then if he has to scramble, he'll scramble, but he's not looking to run first and foremost. I think that's a positive thing, for his quarterbacking ability as well. So I think, like, he's got some real positive traits just from a mental processing standpoint as well.
Hey guys, just taking a quick break to tell you, hey, just over 50% of you are still unsubscribed to Check the Mic. It helps the channel. It helps to make sure that you don't miss any of our shows. So if you have a chance, hit the subscribe button right now. The other thing I wanted to say too, because I agree, I think he navigates when he navigates the pocket to run, it's decisive, and he does a good job with that. I think he's absolutely looking to throw. I was watching the Louisville game live, and he rolls to his left, and I thought he was throwing one away, because it was like from the 30, 35 yard line. Looked like he was throwing it away, puts an absolute strike in the back of the end zone for a touchdown. I mean, he can make special plays. And part of the reason why I tried to preface a lot of the history of QB evaluation and everything is we went through a stretch where the toolsy quarterbacks did not hit whatsoever. The guys with accuracy issues, the guys that just had big arms and some athleticism, none of them hit until they started to hit. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert. And so Ward, I think, has to be one in this class because of this perceived ceiling. And you could go back to what the great Greg Cosell said. And you would say, Tom Brady doesn't have a high ceiling. Drew Brees doesn't have high ceiling. Brock Purdy doesn't have a high ceiling, but they certainly reached their potential. And Purdy looks like he's on his way, and they're not toolsy guys. but I think Cam Ward can do special stuff, right? And I think of all the quarterbacks in this class, he could do that the best. He improved his sack rate. That's the one other thing I wanted to highlight. Improved his sack rate last year. He has gotten a little bit better each year as well, I believe, all the way through the progression. And I don't love the way he's not great with his just pure footwork. I'm sure JT's maybe got some footwork questions. He's drifting. He's not, it's not exactly by the book, but I think a lot of that's just his feel and playmaking too. I think he also knows when to maneuver, when to drift and create space to make those throws. And a lot of that works in his favor. So the one other point I wanted to highlight, and I think it's would you call Cam, I would consider Cam Ward kind of a 1-year wonder. And I put that in, are you a 1-year starter who is elite, or did you only have one great year? I would say Cam Ward is in that bucket. And over the last 10 years or so, we have examples of those guys going both ways, right? Kyler Murray had 1 year as a starter. Joe Burrow had 2 years as a starter, but one was elite. Mitch Trubisky had 1 year as a starter, which was excellent. Dwayne Haskins had 1 year as a starter, and Mac Jones are and then you could say Jaden Daniels, who was a 5-year starter, but the 5th one was just out of this world different, right? And so this is why I say there's no data that says this is a positive or this is a negative, because 3 out of those 5 looked great, and 2 or 3 out of 6, whatever it is. So I don't think that's telling either way. But you could say he's either trending in the right direction, or why he only did it in 1 year when he had the best talent around him at Miami. I don't think it matters either way, but I think it's just interesting looking back at the history of players that I would consider 1-year wonders at the position.
It's also, it depends. You need to measure those things the correct way, right? Like if you looked at certain data points, they would say every year he started looked good, right? Touchdown to interception ratio. I mean, that was the people that are like Aaron Rodgers had a really good year last year. Actually, quietly, you guys all just missed it. Like touchdown to interception ratio is the thing that they're using to say, actually, his numbers are really good last year. You guys, I don't know what you were watching, right? Cam Ward's touchdown interception ratio for his career, like every single year was good, right? But but if you're watching the tape in those years, they weren't as good as those data points. So if you can definitely look at certain data points and say it's a 1-year wonder, effectively, like one elite year, the rest of them were varying degrees of solid, but not spectacular. But if you were looking at certain data points, you'd be like, every year he started, he was good.
Anything else from you on Cam Ward before we move on to QB2?
Yeah, the negatives that I had on him a little bit. Number one, we've already talked about that kind of fine line between improv success and, disastrous plays. This is another one of those things where it's like the balance can go either way. He is stylistically like he's a big game hunter. He is looking for huge plays, and sometimes that's at the exclusion of open underneath plays where that idea of you'll never go broke if you just keep picking up profit, right? Well, he eschews profit all the time, looking for, like, he's like a VC. He's searching for the thing that's going to want 100x his money. He's turning down the small simple profit, and he's searching for the thing that's going to catapult him to the moon. So I question sometimes some of his turn downs. They're decisive, don't get me wrong. Like once he decides he's throwing something, he's throwing it, and there's no hesitation, but they do feel like wrong reads on the play a lot of the time. And again, explosives are the thing everyone's trying to make happen in the NFL. So on the one hand, you can look at that and say, that's a good thing, right? He's aiming at the most productive, the most explosive, the most valuable plays. But I do wonder if he strays too far in that direction instead of just taking the open play sometimes.
That was a Caleb Williams point for me. The big play hunting and just kind of like waiting. And again, part of that scheme, part of that's style. But yeah, I definitely saw that in Caleb Williams last year as well.
And then the only other thing I feel like his accuracy in terms of like ball location it's middle of the pack. Like it's okay. It's not a problem. I'm not saying like he's an inaccurate quarterback, but I don't think it's a strength.
Yeah. And I think this is kind of how I described Josh Allen coming out before, he became a superstar, but I described him as having those seasons with the high yards per attempt. Maybe the interceptions are high, but the touchdowns are high as well. I think Cam Ward can have those high end seasons But he could also have those seasons where, maybe the turnovers end up coming back to bite, and it's just volatile. I think there's volatility to Cam Ward's game. The last question I wanted to answer: where does he rank compared to last year's quarterbacks? Because I've seen this all over the place as well. Personally, I wouldn't put him above Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, or Drake Maye as a prospect. And now it's tough in hindsight, but Michael Penix looked pretty good. Bo Nix looked pretty good. And we don't know what J.J. McCarthy would have been. I mean, there's a realistic case that he, once we have the information, would be the 7th best quarterback of the last 2 draft classes. But as a prospect, I don't think he's higher than 4 behind Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, and Drake Maye, who went 1, 2, 3 last year.
I do think it's tough because of the hindsight thing and the way that your kind of bias is going to be slanted with more information. And neither one of us grades these guys in terms of like a scouting numerical grade, right? A 7.2 or whatever. So we can't, we're not coming at this with a number that we've based it. But I felt all the way along that Shedeur Sanders belonged in the conversation with last year's quarterbacks, right? I agree. I would have him below Caleb Williams, Drake Maye, and Jaden Daniels, but I think he belongs in that tier with the next group, right? The J.J. McCarthys, the Bo Nixes, and the Michael Penix of the world, bearing in mind that at least 2 of those guys were seen as low-end first-round guys, maybe top end of the second round. I feel like they belong in that group, both Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. I think that's where they sit relative to last year's guys, not at the very, very top end, where those guys were special type prospects, but in the next group.
Yeah, the next group where they all have some. I liked Maye more. I mean, we were surprised, I think, at how much negativity there was around Drake Maye, but I thought he was in the top tier of last year, and certainly of the last 2 years. I would still put Maye there, cut off there, and then there's a lot of buts. J.J. McCarthy, how often did he carry an offense? Michael Penix Jr.'s injuries. Bo Nix, is he great or just serviceable? Cam Ward has different types of questions, but similar level of questions, I would say. Good.
Mm-hmm.
Good on Cam Ward. My last point on Cam Ward. Just hearing him talk a little bit, he's got a little bit of that go ahead and doubt me that shows up, like a Geno Smith, like a Baker Mayfield. Just saying. When you hear enough of that, Top Golf, he would win Top Golf. He'd pass the Top Golf test, I think. If we get, I don't know if the Titans are doing that, if they're bringing in the Top Golf, setup, but I think Cam Ward wins Top Golf.
Thanks for watching all the way to the end of our video.
For more great content, click here to subscribe and here to watch another video. We'll see you again soon.